Hello, I'm Lina, and this is Karma, your sustainable podcast. Today, I'm very happy to speak with Nick from Cleantech21.
How did I get here again?
Let's go. So, hello, Nick. Welcome to my podcast.
Hello, Lina.
Hello. Could you please introduce yourself shortly?
Yeah, my name is Nick Beglinger. I'm Swiss. I live in Zurich. I've studied economics in London, went to work for a consulting company in Germany and Asia, started my own companies in Asia. And since 15 years, I run the Cleantech21 Foundation.
Wow, sounds interesting. Could you please tell us what's the idea of Cleantech21 Foundation and what you're doing there?
Yes, sure. Cleantech21 is a not-for-profit Swiss foundation. Our mission is to have an impact in the area of climate and biodiversity. So we want to change the world, what the climate change, the climate crisis is concerned, but also what the biodiversity crisis is concerned. The two are very much linked. Our I'd say special approach is that we are working at the intersection of, on the one hand, technology, and on the other hand, policy, and on the third, business. So we're trying to bring solutions that have a lot of leverage, that can change things in a big way, because it's a big way that we need to find in order to bring the solutions for climate and for biodiversity.
Yes, sure. So, okay, so what is your typical client, or for who you are working?
Okay, so we don't really have clients in the traditional sense. What we do is we do a lot of research. So we have an in-house team of people to do research. And then we find those areas where we think we can achieve the greatest impact. So we choose, for example, an area such as advocacy of firms. So how companies can influence policy, and we identify that as an area where we think things have to change, and if they change, we'll see a lot of movement, a big movement, not just an incremental change, but an exponential change. And then we define a project, a solution that can address, in the example's case, corporate advocacy in a very efficient way. So this is actually our project number one. It's called the Climate Policy Exchange. It's a software solution that links global corporate leaders, so companies that are far ahead when it comes to climate change and biodiversity. We link those electronically with national policy opportunities. So if, for example, in Switzerland or in Germany or in the Maldives, something is being discussed in policy, we make sure that these companies are there where and when they're needed, because they can give their voice to that national initiative and help that national initiative be successful, and therefore the laws of that country to change, and therefore climate and biodiversity moving forward in the right direction. So it's basically linking the big power of big companies to small, if you want, national policy initiatives when it's needed, 2 months before the votation or 3 weeks before the parliament discusses it. Okay,
so a non-profit.
We are a non-profit, and our model is to research and then originate our own projects, which we then execute together with partners.
Okay.
So in the case that I mentioned, Climate Policy Exchange, we did research for quite a long time, had lots of interviews with companies, with NGOs, with political parties, with scientists. Then we specified the project, we gave it a name, and then we gave it to funders to look at, and we got some money for it. Then we went to companies, and we get some companies to work with us. So with CPX, for example, we work with Unilever and IKEA, two of the world's leading companies when it comes to addressing climate change. So we learn from them how things should be done. We put it into our solution, and then we broaden up to get many companies to participate. That's where we're at right now on this project. Yes. So and we have a few of those projects, usually 3 to 4 projects running concurrently at the same time. So our role is to start them, to get them financed, to get them going, to make them good, and then we usually have somebody else executing them.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting.
That's what we're doing. Interesting but challenging.
Challenging, yes.
We need to do a lot of work, and we don't get so much money, and we always are quite excited of our work. We want it to go faster, and we have to wait for other people to make up their mind.
So how many people are you at Cleantech21?
Inside the company, we have about 5 full-time people, but we have a network of about 30 to 50 people that we tap depending on the project. So usually it starts with in-house work only, and then once some finance is involved, we start to engage a network so that we have on a project usually 15 to 20 full-time equivalents. That's the sort of the targets that we have for growing it fast. But that sometimes depends on the money, and sometimes depends on the project type, because not all work you can just accelerate by putting more people. Sometimes you need to sort of crack something before you can expand and enlarge.
True, yes. And can you give me maybe an example of a finished project already? Is there something?
Yes, there's many things. Well, so our first project, and one of the reasons why I set up the foundation 15 years ago, was an economic association called Swiss Cleantech. So our foundation started a project that is called Swiss Cleantech, and Swiss Cleantech is Switzerland's first and still most impactful green business associations. So we have members such as Schneider Electric, NG, or some large companies being active in Switzerland, some large Swiss companies as well, to join this association and be politically active. That's a bit what you call a business or an industry association. And this was a long, extensive project that we run from 2009 to 2016. And then we spun it out of the foundation, and it now works independently. You'll find it on swisscleantech.ch. Another project which could be interesting in your scene is a project, an innovation program called Hack for Climate, that in 2017 we organized the first ever hackathon that is linked to a climate conference. And the reason for doing this is that we wanted to actively bring sort of disruptive technology such as IoT, AI, artificial intelligence, or distributed ledgers to the climate scene, because we noted that many people in government, but also in business working around climate, didn't really know about those technologies. So they didn't understand the potential impact these technologies could have even in their field. So even in climate, things like artificial intelligence or IoT or DLT can be really important. So you could create solutions that are good solutions and can work fast and lead us to a solution fast. So we make this hackathon to bring smart people from the technology scene together with sort of the climate people, and that's also a project which had a lot of impact. So a lot of ideas got developed from there, and a lot of ventures got on their way because of our efforts.
Yeah, sounds good. And what is the plan for next year? Is there something special?
There's always something. Well,
it's always yes.
If you work in climate,
there's
your world is now different in the sense that the 26th climate conference, COP26, just finished in Glasgow a month ago. Next year we're going to have COP27. So for the 27th time, we'll have a meeting of the Conference of the Parties. All countries coming together, and it's an exciting year because people don't know if they should call COP26 a success or a failure. If you're very PR minded and you want to be positive, as many people in the climate scene think is the most effective way to communicate, you would say that looking back, what has been achieved thus far, COP26 was a real success because for the first time this and that and the other. But if you look into the future and you think what is needed in order for us to solve the climate crisis, then you come to the understanding that COP26 has been a huge failure, and that actually we've been, talking about or achieving a little bit of a huge problem. So depending on this perspective, people are of different moods. I tend to be rather looking at it as as being not so successful. And because we have so little time and there is so many dangers coming, so many costs coming, and just this year, this has been very obvious with all the fires and the floodings everywhere and the hurricanes just, a few days ago again, and it's going to continue. So people start to realize things need to change. It cannot go for another 30 COPs like this, like the ones we had already. So the exciting thing for next year is to see if a new angle is being found in the international negotiations of moving further, faster, of trying to achieve more than we have achieved with the current process. So people start to think, are these climate conferences, the way we do this, is this really the right way to go? Will this really bring us to where we need to go? And the honest answer today is definitely no, it will not. So the question is, how will this change, and so on and so forth. And we're kind of involved a bit in this, and we're trying to find the ways to make a process that really leads to where we need to go.
Yes. So have you been a part of COP26 or?
Yeah, in a sense, you could say. I mean, I'm not working for a government. So therefore, I'm not part of an official government delegation.
Yeah, but
so I'm not negotiating in COP, but I'm there as what you call as an observer. So I'm attending meetings and I'm talking to people. So I contribute outside the formal negotiation process, and I look what is being negotiated and comment if it's good or bad. So that's my role.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Then I think we know what is Cleantech21, but I have one last question to you. What are you doing in your office or also in private to be more sustainable? Do you have maybe a tip for some people that have a look on this? I mean, I think it's everybody's speaking about to be more sustainable, but I think it's quite interesting to hear what different people say.
Yeah, okay, of course, this is not the first time I'm asked this question. So I start backwards on those things that people generally don't think about, and I think are the most important. So first and foremost, it's voting. So if you live in a country where you can vote, you should vote. So not voting is not cool, or it's not, revolutionary or anything. It's just stupid because you throw your vote out the window. So you should vote. And before you vote, you should check out for whom you vote, and you should check out that these people take the climate crisis seriously, because the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis is probably the biggest problem that we're facing, bigger than COVID, bigger than other things that you may find important. It is the defining issue of our generation, and we must solve it, because if we don't, it's super unfair towards the younger people who come. Yes. Because we leave the world behind that is very different from the world that we were able to enjoy. So voting is in my view, one of the most important things. Second, working, because you spend a lot of time in your day working, not sitting at home, doing something. So if you work, think about what you work. Don't work something that helps destroying the planet. So don't work for an oil company, or if you do, you bloody change it. And only then continue to work for them. But make a conscious decision what you do with most of your time, and a big part of the day is working. So don't look at work as just something that earns you money, but look at work as how you contribute to society, what your role is in society. And if you do that, don't just look at what makes you the most money. Also think about how this money is made that you end up getting. And if it is made in a way that destroys the planet or does harm in another way, I don't think it's morally correct you do that work. So if you think about working, think about climate and biodiversity. And the third thing, I mean, I can mention a few more, but the third thing that people don't think so much about is finance. So, if you work in a company, the company has a pension fund, the pension gets lots of money every month from your salary. That's a legal obligation to pay that money. So you have to make sure that the way this money is invested is done in a climate smart way. So it shouldn't be invested in fossil fuel companies if those need to stop working for the planet to be healthy, because it means that the value of those shares is going to go down. And even if it's not going down, you don't want to give money to people who destroy the planet. So think very cautiously where your money is. If you're rich and you have investment funds and bankers that do stuff for you, then, you know, lucky you, but still, even your responsibility is greater to make sure your bankers understand that you don't want to just invest in an index fund that ends up holding oil companies and things like that, but you want to make sure that the pension, the bank is investing in sustainable companies or bonds or what have you. So think about what your money is doing, because that can have an important effect. And then there's the other thing. So don't buy anything, but really nothing, nada, nothing at all that produces any emissions going forward, right? So if you have a car that happens to be a diesel car, if it's 10 years old, you know, I don't necessarily blame you if you drive it 2 more years. But if you today buy a new diesel car and not an electric car, you must be really out of your mind, because that means this car is going to stay around for another 10 years in the future, and that's what we can't afford. So nothing that you buy today, no money, no new things that you get can produce any emissions. And even the lawnmower, you know, if you cut your grass, do it electric. If you drive around, do it electric. You heat your house, do it electric. Everything has to be emission free. So don't buy anything anymore that produces emissions. And that's true for companies and for people.
Yes, yeah. Sure. Okay. Thank you very much. Great tips for everybody, I would say. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I wish everybody good luck in going and implementing the tips.
Yeah, sure.
It's action we need, no words.
Yes.
We got plenty of words. Yeah.
How did I get here again?